This is ODAAT Chat, your instant connection to recovery and community, one day at a time. This podcast may contain strong language, sexual content, and spiritual truth. Listener discretion is advised.
Today's episode is brought to you by audible.com. This is my most favorite app. I have about 64 book titles on my phone. I don't listen to the radio that much anymore. I listen to Audible books when I'm driving or going to the grocery store or shopping at the mall or whatever, or laundry, who knows. So I just am obsessed with, obviously, with this app. There are so many amazing authors out there, some who have been on the show. And I think the one I'm listening to right now is called Playing Big by Tara Moore. She's amazing. So if you want to try it out, you can actually get your first one free by going to ODAATchat.com. On the right, there's the Audible button. If you sign up for a membership, you get your first book free. I hope you enjoy it as much as I do, and shoot me a message on Facebook. Let me know what you're listening to, and maybe we can talk about it on the podcast. Welcome to ODAAT Chat. My name is Arlina, and I'll be your host. If you're wondering what ODAAT means, it's an abbreviation for One Day at a Time. This is a podcast where my guests and I talk about their stories, what happened, what it was like, and what life is like now. Through these conversations, I'm looking to uncover the ideas, changes in perspective, and the daily habits or routines that lead to healing and long-term recovery. Before I jump into the overview of today's podcast, I did want to let you know about a workbook I just bought called The Desire Map, A Guide to Creating Goals with Soul. This is by Danielle Laporte. It's a beautiful book too. I'm a sucker for pretty packaging, but the topics and exercises are designed to help you ask better questions so that you get better answers that guide you to new and happier places. It's like a goal setting workbook. I flipped through it, and the questions and exercises really started getting me thinking. I'm excited to I'll leave an affiliate link in the show notes, but this book will be the first of a brand new series called One Step Beyond. So it'll be a group that you can access through my Patreon site for $5 a month, and the book study will start June 1st. It will likely be an intimate group since this is the first in a series. So this will probably feel safer for those who don't like big groups. So this series is for people who are looking to incorporate other healing practices into their existing recovery experience. And it's been my experience over the last 24 years that I've been sober that the biggest aha moments come when people are working through something and sharing in a safe and positive group. So I hope to see you there. So this is actually a very special episode, as today, May 26th, is Omar Pinto's 15-year sobriety anniversary date or birthday. Omar is the host of the Shair podcast, which has over 1.2 million downloads, which is so amazing. It blows my mind. Today, Omar shares his story of addiction and recovery, and he's hilarious. He is the only guy I know, by the way, who gained weight as a cocaine addict. So just a little preview into our discussion. And listen, fair warning, I'm a bit of a fangirl, so I geeked out a little, so forgive me. But this is a wide-ranging conversation, and it's a little long, so don't feel like you have to listen to all of it in one sitting, but it's definitely worth listening to the end. So with that, I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. And with that, please enjoy this episode with Omar. Well, Omar, welcome to the ODAAT Chat podcast.
Hi, Arlina. It's a pleasure to be here.
Listen, I am so excited to have you on. I got the Omar. I'm so excited.
It was so funny. I love it. I'm a big deal or something.
You are a total big deal. Well, it's so funny because we were just talking about how, I've had the experience where people come up to me and they say, oh, I feel like we've been hanging out because I've been listening to your podcast. And so it's like, oh, I feel like I've been hanging out with you, Omar, because I've been listening to your podcast.
Well, thank you. It is an honor to be here. I've heard that a couple of times. It doesn't get old.
Yeah, it is kind of fun. Yeah, for sure. And you have a tremendous Facebook group. Well, first, let's back up for a second. Let's talk about who you are. So you're Omar Pinto, and what do you do professionally?
I am a life coach. That's what I do professionally. I have an online platform called ShareSpace. And ShareSpace is an online community for life coaching and personal development that I launched in January. I quit my job prior to that, February of 2000. I guess it would be 2017. So February 2017, I quit my job, and I spent the last year studying and getting certified as a neurolinguistic programming as a practitioner, also in hypnotherapy and in timeline therapy as a recovery coach. And I also worked for a while in Costa Rica recovery as an addictions specialist. So I made a big transition last year and moved into this space. And now more formally, what I do is, I guess you could say I'm an NLP practitioner. That's what I do.
Okay, yeah, I actually just took an NLP certification a few months ago, so that's pretty cool. Yeah, that's a great methodology and technique for healing, and yeah, that's awesome.
It is.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. I told you Skype was glitchy. I gotta pick your brain after the podcast and see if I can't find a better way to record.
Zoom.
Okay, I will totally try that. But okay, so you've been doing NLP and hypnotherapy, but you also have an amazing podcast.
Yes. So what I do for a living is I'm a coach, but what I've had for the last 3 years, I launched in 2015, which is the Shair podcast. And that has just evolved into something that's just, it's a miracle. It's magical. It's something that where people say, wow, it's amazing what it's done. And it's like, well, I started just like everybody else who had an idea. Right? In 2015, I was like, I think I'm going to launch a podcast. Right? It was one of those things, right? That was it. I mean, 2014 is when I started kicking around the idea, and I was going to do an entrepreneur podcast, just like everybody else and their mother was doing.
I know.
But I just couldn't. I don't know. There was probably at that time a tremendous amount of limiting beliefs around what I was capable of doing, and plus the idea of being an entrepreneur when I wasn't an entrepreneur at the time. Like now I'm an entrepreneur, right? I could do an entrepreneur podcast now. But at the time I wasn't an entrepreneur. And so it was like, okay, so I'm not really an entrepreneur, but I'm interviewing guys that are entrepreneurs, and I don't even know if that's going to be something that I'm going to be able to connect with, right? Because of that fact. But I still wanted to launch a podcast. A recovery podcast. And that's when things just almost happened overnight. Because as soon as I shifted my focus from the entrepreneur space to the recovery space, then my brain just started working on a different level. The idea started to flow, and it was like, wow, this is so much easier than the entrepreneur podcast. And so imagine somebody who just, I had done a lot of research, though. I will say this, right?
Yeah.
I joined Podcasters Paradise.
Oh, yeah.
I became part of the Podcasters Paradise private Facebook group,
right,
which has just every conceivable tip and trick and tactic for launching your podcast, for ranking on iTunes, for getting reviews, so all that stuff. Like I took it very seriously. I dove right in. And it was a tremendous amount of work to kind of build that social momentum and even get the Facebook group started. Imagine the Facebook group has, it should have like 5,000 members now. And again, I'm starting with like 100 people in the group.
That's a super active group too.
It's very active. It's very, very active.
Yeah. And I have a bunch of questions about that because, there seems to be like some reoccurring themes. Like I know relapse is a common theme. People struggling, they'll post about their struggles, and I'm sure you get all kinds of different opinions. And having to monitor something that's so so active. That has to be challenging. But I just love that it's such a big group and everyone is so active and so loving and supportive towards each other.
Yes.
It's an amazing accomplishment.
Well, I'll speak to that as well, because it's not by coincidence.
Okay.
It's not by coincidence that the group is the way it is. That was my vision. My vision was to create, just like the podcast, the vision was an opportunity to talk about recovery in all facets, in all pathways, in any way, shape, or form that you recovered, in however, which way, it didn't matter, right? Yeah. Maybe I just became a gym rat. Maybe I went to church. Maybe I, did yoga for 12-step recovery. Maybe I just did yoga, right? And there was, at first, because I got clean in 12-step recovery, right? There was my, all my guests were my friends, right?
Yeah,
like I would just go to meetings.
That's what I've been doing.
and just go, hey, I got this podcast. You want to be on my podcast? And they're like, what is a podcast? And is it anonymous? Are they going to see my face?
I know.
So there's that whole stigma around anonymity.
Ugh.
I was like, tell you what, you can be, Steve C or, Alan B or whatever, with no pictures. I need your story.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. You've heard the speaker tapes online, right? And then as soon as I say that, then all of a sudden it gives them permission. All right. Oh yeah. Yeah, I've heard that. I go, there's no faces and they're not using their last name. I guess it'd be okay.
Yeah.
And but so then all of a sudden,
how do you get past the whole sharing it on Facebook and stuff? Because then some people I talk to are like, well, I don't want to share it on Facebook.
Oh, because I don't share it on my public Facebook page.
Oh, you
Anything
don't?
that
You keep
I talk
it separate?
about recovery, it's all in the private group.
Oh,
Everything.
Okay.
Everything recovery related is
unless
it's about me.
Right.
Right? If I'm talking about something that went on with me, or if I was on a podcast interview or whatever the case may be, and I posted on my private Facebook page, which is public. I mean, sorry, not my private one, my public Facebook page. Yeah, so I've got my public profile, right? And I don't post, I hardly post anything in reference to share on my public profile. I've built the private Facebook group, right? Because when I first launched, I was trying to get people to like the fan page.
Right.
But but then people will see that I like the fan page, then they'll know I'm in recovery. And then there's that spiral. And then I was like, wait a minute, there's these groups. Let me just start a private Facebook group. And then people just loved it, because then you could stay anonymous. Nobody has to know. And even if you don't care about anonymity, but you care about your own anonymity, then it just makes it simple. Or you don't want your wife or your coworkers or your husband or somebody else to read what you're posting, right?
Right, yeah.
So yes, there was that at the beginning. There was a lot of that pushback, right? And I was like, and that actually irked me as well. That's one of the things that used to drive me bananas. And I'm like, dude, I'm not anonymous, okay? But I'm not promoting it either. Like, it's just, I mentioned that was the path I went through.
Right.
But I'm not up here going, this is why you should join Alcoholics Anonymous, and this is why you should join Narcotics Anonymous, right? And we don't do anything that actually goes against the traditions. If I mention that 12 steps was my pathway, then that's not going against the traditions, right? Yeah. It's just if the whole purpose is to promote it. And so they were like, okay, kind of. But a lot of people that are more old school about 12 steps will be very cautious about how they promote it or how they're featured on the podcast. So what I was like, okay, great. But what happens is, those were my first guests, my friends, and the ones that were like, everything was anonymous. But after a while, when the podcast started picking up speed and notoriety, then people started to ask if they could be on the show. And these people had books, and these people had, different, whatever. They had stuff that they were promoting. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So mostly authors, right? Oh, I just wrote this book on addiction, and I want to be. So they don't care about, they want to be promoting themselves, right? Yeah. And so that's when when the face started to come out. Okay. People that it was books. And then it was like, okay, I want to connect with people who don't want to be anonymous, that want, and then that's when I started to discover Faces and Voices. That's when I started to discover people that were on the front lines of recovery. And then that's when my vision and my focus became very, very clear. It was recovery and the stigma behind it, right? It's one thing to have the stigma of addiction. It's another thing to have stigma behind recovery.
Isn't that crazy?
So
there's stigma.
It's a double whammy.
Yeah. Stigma
It's a
behind
double
recovery.
whammy. I have shame about being an addict, and I have a shame about being a recovery addict.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's a load of shit.
Right?
So
Yeah.
I was like, that's a load of shit. I can't get behind that.
Right.
And so
Let that shit go.
then I started really pushing it. Yeah. And I started pushing hard against the envelope. And that's when I really started to get my voice out there as far as, and then I started being on podcasts, just like yours, right? So it was like, let's just talk recovery. I'll talk recovery from my perspective.
Yeah.
But for me, here's the simple answer for that long-winded response. 12-step recovery saved my life.
Yes.
Okay. If you were to ask me, does 12-step recovery work for anybody? I will say yes, it will. The only way it doesn't work is when they can't find their way to embrace it the way that it is.
Right.
So if you were to embrace the 12-step program the way it's structured, then by the time you're done working the steps, you will have a completely different life and a completely different outlook on recovery and your own addiction. Okay? But you have to kind of give yourself that chance. And so the two biggest hurdles when it comes to 12-step recovery is the idea of the higher power, the spiritual aspect of it. That's always the biggest hurdle, right? And then it's the whole idea of just how structured it can be, right? There is kind of this, I guess, dogmatic way of that the 12 steps has to become, where I don't think Bill and Bob meant it to be so rigid. But what it's turned into is if you don't work it exactly the way it's portrayed in the book, if you don't follow things exactly the way it is, the rigidity of it is the second aspect that pushes people out.
Do you know what I thought you were going to say? I thought you were going to say that, I knew you were going to say the thing about the higher power part, but I thought the second thing that you were going to say was about the stigma of being an alcoholic. Like, don't you find that people struggle with the idea of being powerless to control alcohol?
Yeah.
That's what I see is a lot of people really struggling.
It's more, they certainly do push back on the idea of classifying themselves as an alcoholic. There's obviously there's a lot of different hurdles, right?
So many hurdles.
But here's the thing. If someone's having a tough time even embracing the idea that they're an alcoholic, right? I just can't wrap my head around the fact that I'm an alcoholic. Then usually we forget the higher power, forget the step work, right? If I can't even embrace the idea that I've got a problem and that I'm an alcoholic or an addict, right? That's just denial.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm talking about when people are like, here's the thing. They're desperate. They've lost all kinds of shit.
Yeah.
They're like, dude, I need recovery. I give up, man. I'm an addict. I'm an alcoholic, right? Damn the stigma. Right? And then you present them with the steps. And then right after, you present them with the higher power, right? And then they're like, whoa.
Yeah, but
Okay, I'm down with the whole I'm okay. Can't I just admit that I'm an alcoholic and that I'm powerless? And what's with all this step work and this whole God thing, right?
Yeah.
And so, and for me, I was so desperate that I just lied when I came in. Are you willing to go to any length? Yes. Are you willing to do whatever it takes? Yes. Are you willing to let God into your life? Yes. Right? Whatever. Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Save
yes.
my
And
ass.
I wouldn't
It's
say
on fire.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm exaggerating a little bit. I'm exaggerating about I'm lying, but there was a lot of me that was like, yes, whatever you tell me, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Whatever you tell me, I'll do it. And whether or not I believed it, I was in so much pain that I was willing to let. And that's what tells me the difference between someone whose ass is on fire and knows it, and someone whose ass is on fire and they're like, "You smell smoke." Okay, like that.
I wish this podcast was on video. Your face is hilarious.
Right, there's a difference between my ass is on fire, right, and I'm running around trying to figure out how to put it out,
Right.
and there's the guy who's standing there with his ass on fire, and he's standing there sniffing around,
smell
going,
that?
"God, smell smoke," Do you
smell
And
ass?
so that guy I won't spend a lot of time dealing with.
You're right. Yeah.
That guy, I'll be like,
nah.
Yeah, dude. I think you're right. I think I do smell smoke, right? Yeah. You want me to help you look? Right? And then
Want me to help you look for it?
Yeah. I like the guy who knows his ass is on fire, and then I'll present you and I'll say, okay, so this is what I did. And then I'll get the it's like a sales, right? And then you get the rebuttals.
Yeah.
You get the pushback. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I don't know if I can do this. Okay. And then I'll come back with, okay, so let's just say, for example, we kind of like remove the whole idea of a higher power, right? You kind of remove this idea of like working the steps perfectly or how you're looking at this, right? What if that was not an obstacle, right? What if you could be a part of, right? And take what you need and leave the rest. What if you could do that? And then if they come back with, yeah, but I mean, I hear you, but it's still there. And somebody's going to try and like talk about the God thing. And then there's, okay, well, great. Okay. So if that's where we're at, then what does recovery look like for you, and what's the pathway that you feel is more appropriate for you? So then that's where the coaching element came in, and that's when I started moving into recovery coaching, which eventually led me to moving into life coaching, because now I was taking things off the table. Right? Oh, you don't like that? Okay. If you at least tell me I'm desperate and I need help, and I want to change this aspect of my life, but I don't like this option, then let's talk options.
Let's talk options. Yeah.
If you come at me, you're like, well, I mean, I don't know if I like that term, and I don't know if I'm like 100%, and I don't, you know what I mean? Like if there's that wishy-washy even from the start where I can't even embrace the fact that I have a problem, then there's no reason to have a conversation.
Right? Yeah.
But I will discuss pathways with you. As a matter of fact, the guys that I coach with, right, every single person that I coach, and I mean, I've got, I don't know how many one-on-ones, and then I've got a 2 weekly group calls, right? Good. And we never discuss the steps. Everyone in there is in recovery, and we never talk steps because it's not it's not about the pathway. It's about the pathways.
Right.
So if I'm going through a divorce, if I want a career change, if I am having problems with my family, if I am having problems with overeating, if I am having problems with alcohol or drugs, then it's about us asking, okay, what have you already looked into? What have you already exhausted? What are you currently looking at that we can help you analyze or work through? And so it's just about finding out how far along in the process they are, and then offering assistance to move them in the direction that they're going to. What that does is it removes, number one, it removes the stigma. Right? Okay, because it doesn't focus on being an addict. It doesn't focus on even being in recovery.
Right.
It focuses on, I have a problem and I'm looking for a solution. And now we ask you, what have you looked at? What are you interested in? And, how can we help you? So so now it's this kind of like going back and forth. And it's not me saying, well, I mean, obviously you have to go and get into the AA. I mean, obviously you have to get a sponsor and work the steps. And then boom, the door comes down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because now I'm coming from a place of judgment
Right.
or almost condemnation.
Right. Yeah. And what you're really talking about is meeting people where they are. Like, I feel like you need to meet people where they are so that you can, determine what the next step is going to be and what the next step after that is going to be.
It's always about meeting them where they're at.
Yes. Yes. And so let's step back a little bit because I'm dying to hear your story, right? So I want to know about Omar. Like, so one of the things that fascinates me is how people were raised, what kind of, family did you grow up in, like what your parents did for a living, because the family dynamic is what sets the stage for our entire life, right? So can you tell me, can you give me your experience, strength, and hope, and, maybe start with like what your parents did for a living and how many siblings you have, like where you grew up, that kind of thing?
Well, I'm originally from California.
Oh, really?
I was born in Pasadena, California.
Okay.
Pasadena.
All right. I'm a Cali girl.
All right. So what part of Cali?
I'm in San Jose, North Bay.
Are you there now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Silicon
Awesome.
Valley. Yeah, I'm in San Jose.
Cali. Awesome. Yeah. California, dude. Awesome.
The weed is legal.
Totally.
Okay, so you grew up in Pasadena, though?
I was born and raised in Pasadena. We lived there till I was about 15. Then we moved up to San Luis Obispo, California. Lived in San Luis Obispo till I was about 25 years old. Somewhere in there, 24, 25. And then from there, I moved back to LA to work. So backstory is my mother migrated from Cuba. My father migrated from Colombia. I'm first generation United States citizen. And I have two sisters. All of us were born in Pasadena. And so
younger sisters?
My parents didn't. I'm the oldest. I have two younger sisters. One's 1 year younger and one's 7 years younger.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So my parents moved over to the United States, and my dad, dishwasher, didn't speak English, right? So it was my mom, seamstress, right? So both of them, it was one of those stories, right, of migrants that make their way over and are trying to better their lives by moving to the United States, chasing the American dream. Mm-hmm. And, my dad was just always a hard worker, right? He's a very strong work ethic. Mm. So at some point he got hired on to Xerox, right? Which was as a electronic technician for mammography machines.
Oh, really?
And
Save the Tatas.
Save the Tatas. My dad was part of that movement of saving the Tatas.
Bless his
heart.
And
so that was, they learned English, right? My mom actually went to work at a bank, right? So it was like this story of two people that just worked really, really hard and ended up moving us up to San Luis Obispo so we could be in a nice neighborhood. And my dad was very concerned about us not having to deal with any sort of discrimination. Mm. So we only spoke English in the house. Mm. So my dad was very firm about, we only speak English in this house.
Wow.
Even my parents spoke English in the house.
So were you not raised speaking any other languages or? No, we had Spanish in the house. I spoke Spanish till we were 5 years old. And when we went to school, it was, you're not speaking Spanish. Wow,
you're speaking English. Yeah.
He
wasn't worried about us keeping our Latino heritage.
Right. Yeah.
And back in the 70s, when I was born, this was back in the cocaine cartel era.
Right.
So my dad used to say that he was Mexican.
Oh, really? He
didn't claim that he was
a little
Colombian.
Little stigma with the
A big stigma.
big stigma. No, that's interesting.
So my dad.
I was going to say my mother is from Mexico City.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And my dad is from Kentucky, but we also spoke English in the household because when I was coming up, my mom was speaking English.
Uh-huh.
So she would speak Spanish to my tias or,
Yes.
my aunts and uncles, but we didn't speak it in the house either.
No.
But I never got the feeling like she was embarrassed or ashamed about it, but I just didn't learn the language either. So that's interesting that, you spoke it, you didn't even speak it in the house.
Shame was the blanket and cloak we all wore growing up.
Okay.
Yes. My mother's a Jehovah's Witness.
Oh.
So there was guilt and shame around all kinds of things, right? So there was so growing up was just this navigating through what my dad saw for us and what my mom saw for us. So my dad saw the American dream for all of us. So he was like, get a good education, make sure your network is very strong. Make sure you have the right people in your network, right, quote unquote. Mm-hmm. So my dad was very concerned with, who your friends are, who you associate with, right? And so there was that I guess you could say that tinge, or that without saying it, there was that feeling of racism, right, in the house. Mm-hmm. My dad was very clear about who he wanted us hanging out with. Right. And I know he just wanted the best for us. He knew what it was like to have to struggle in a country where people look down on you because you're a minority.
Right.
And so he said, if anyone asks you what your nationality is, you're a United States citizen. That is your nationality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
so actually, I kind of grew up with this whole thing where it's like, when you tell somebody not to be a certain way, then you're like, okay, well, now I want to be a certain way, right? Right. I used to love to say that, and I didn't even say, because I love the whole idea behind the Colombian cartel thing.
Of course.
So people used to say, what's your nationality? I'm Colombian. You know what I mean? Like, oh, wow, Colombian. Yeah. Cool. You
got the hookup?
Right? And I'm like, right, exactly. Totally. Right. And fortunately for me, I never had the stomach for being like, an embellisher or even a liar. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure somebody else would have been like, we migrated here to get away from the cartel. My dad was one of the,
drug runners.
One of the, he used to run drugs for Pablo Escobar. You know what I mean? From Bogota into Medellin, right? I couldn't even imagine myself doing that. I didn't have it in me to tell those kind of stories. But there was always that allure that I always wondered about. Mm-hmm. And so I used to claim that, if they would ask me, and it was funny because my name's Omar Pinto, but because of the way I carried myself before, because of the way I dressed, because of how I was raised, no one would even suspect that I spoke Spanish.
Oh, really?
And I remember when I took Spanish, no. And I took Spanish classes in high school because I wanted to get an easy A.
I know, me too.
Right? And it was easy. It was easy for me. And then when we went to Mexico, when I graduated from high school, I spoke Spanish. And my friend's like, oh, you speak Spanish? And I was like, yeah, dude, I'm Colombian. Like, yeah, but I mean, like, and it's like, yeah, my name's Omar Pinto. And they're like, oh.
So you said it differently.
Right? So,
instead of Omar Pinto.
Right.
Omar Pinto.
Right. Omar Pinto. Right? So,
different.
So there was that. So whenever I needed to use it, I would use it. Right?
Yeah.
I like to use it when to pick up girls. Yeah. Right? Spanish. Because I wasn't
Spanish.
Like the Latinos, right?
Right.
So I used it and abused it whenever I needed to, and I kind of went back and forth. But that was generally my upbringing. My upbringing was from, I was first generation U.S. citizen, and I grew up with a family that was heavy drinker. My dad, very heavy drinker.
Oh, okay.
My all my uncles, heavy drinkers. So there was that very strict discipline, very machista upbringing, right? My dad ran the household like a drill sergeant, right? Very, very strict, lots of rules. And then on the flip side, when we would get together with family, it was just, an ass show. You know what I mean? It was just a ridiculous. I watched my dad transform and watch my uncles, right? And so as soon as I was old enough in my teens, right, they'd let me drink, right, at the family functions.
Like around
but
15?
I actually, no, because I didn't start drinking till I was about 17.
Oh, okay.
I didn't start drinking, so it was actually the very late teens.
Why did you wait so long?
Well, my dad, he used to scare the living Jesus out of us. Mm-hmm. He would, every time there was some kind of like alcohol or drug show, he would make us all watch it.
Oh.
And it was like crack epidemic, cocaine in the street.
Heroin.
And that kind of, yeah. So we're all sitting there watching it, like the three of us watching it. My dad's like, so you know how these people started? They're living in the streets now doing drugs. They started at college parties and high school parties thinking it was okay to have a beer. Right. And then they ended up losing everything. And they were like, and I was like, whoa. So I was terrified.
You totally bought it. But your dad was drinking.
Dad was a master manipulator. He was a master manipulator. Man. And he was like, and he actually would say, in my house, you do as I say, not as I do.
Not as I do. Yeah.
It's my house.
Yeah.
It's my house. You want to do things your way? Go pay your own rent somewhere else.
Right.
All right?
Yeah, this is my house.
Oh, this is my house.
Yeah.
I was whoa, it was very clear.
So your dad ruled the house with an iron, he was like a drill sergeant, and so he would drink, but he wouldn't tolerate it in you guys. And then once you hit about that 17 years where you're kind of seen as a man in the Mexican culture, I get it. Once you hit a certain age, they...
Yep. It was 18.
Yeah, once you hit that age.
18. I first drank when I was 17, but that was because I got to go to my first house party when I was 17.
Oh, you did? And you drank right away at that first house party? Was that your first drink?
Yeah. That was my first drink too.
And you weren't scared of your dad, or was he away, or how did you justify that?
I was more afraid of not being a part of.
Oh, yeah.
Than my dad.
Yeah.
I was a total geek in high school. I didn't have a lot of friends. I was very introverted. I had a lot of self-esteem issues, right? I was very self-conscious.
Why were you so self-conscious?
I had a lot of acne and hair that just would not conform.
Wouldn't cooperate.
This is my best look, right? So
your hairless look.
I had this very, very curly hair, so it was more like a fro, right? And it was just, I was in the United States, and as a 5'9" kid, and I'm in school with kids that are already at my age hitting 6 feet, 6'2", right? Football players, blonde hair. It was a very Anglo-Saxon school. The minority was maybe 5% of the school was minority. The rest was Anglo-Saxon. An extremely white school. So I was one of the little guys, right? So it was, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So
you felt different. Yeah.
I felt different. I was uncomfortable. I was hiding in my own shadow, right? And I just remember getting my first job at Carl's Jr. And I was 16 years old. I worked there for a while. And then I got invited to a house party, and I asked my dad if I could go, and he's like, well, okay, they're co-workers, that kind of a thing. It was summertime, whatever. And I went, I got wasted. I mean, wasted.
Was it fun?
The best night of my life. I drank that first beer, and everything that I felt about myself just washed away.
Yeah.
And the most truest, authentic version of myself just popped out. And I was laughing, and I was telling stories, and I was funny and charismatic, and I was like hitting on the girls. And it was like, for that moment, I wasn't me, even though I didn't even realize it, but I was actually just being me. Mm-hmm. And I had just lost my way And, that was when I started drinking. I was like, this is it. I mean, I finally found a way to be cool. I made all these friends when I went to school. And then when I got home and my dad was like, are you drunk? You went to your first house party. You come home drunk. Unbelievable. Grounded for life, right? So it was
grounded for life. He was pissed.
My dad never grounded you for a week. Yeah, he never grounded you for a week or a month, or he's like, you're grounded. For how long? Till I say so.
Oh, the indefinite guy. Was he into physical punishment?
No.
Not that guy.
No. But he was
mentally
he could just break you down. He would the way he talked to you, right? And just crush you like a can, right? He was that.
Worse. I'm disappointed. Yeah. I'm not mad at you. I'm disappointed.
No, it wasn't that disappointment shit. Huevón, idiota, idiot.
Yeah.
It was just browbeating, right? I remember I stood up to him a few times. Like, I remember the last time he was like going to spank me, and I was already taller than he was.
I said, no.
I looked at him and I said, maybe your house, right? But you're going to have to punch me in the face because I ain't bending over for nobody, right? Yeah. And like he came at me. My mom jumped in the middle of the whole thing. It was like craziness. But at that point on, it was like a shift happened.
Yeah.
Right. And I think, actually, I think my dad respected me more about it.
Right.
Right. Because I was so shy and introverted. Like, I think he was just trying to get me to break out of my shell. Right. And, I was just, at that time, men didn't know how to be vulnerable.
Yeah. He was like doing mental jujitsu on you.
Yeah. So anyway, alcohol became my new passion, my new love. I would sneak out of the house, right? Even though I was grounded. So I'd sneak out of the house and meet my friends like at midnight. My friends had no curfews.
Really?
No curfews. Yes. All my friends.
They could stay out all night long?
All night long. They could stay the night at their friend's house.
Oh.
Right. And so it was like, I see you. You were raised in a Latino background.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
my friends.
My dad was pretty strict too. I was living with my dad when I was a teenager, and I had like a 10 o'clock curfew, and I had to be home. He was a military guy, Marine. So yeah, that whole strict thing too. But we weren't allowed to stay out all night. Not girls anyway.
Yeah, I'd be terrified of your dad. Right. My dad wasn't even in the military. We used to call him the drill sergeant. Yours actually was in the military.
He's a Marine.
That's a whole other layer of terror.
The funny thing is, my dad is like the nicest guy on the planet. He really is. Yeah. He wasn't a drill sergeant. My mom was the kick-ass. Latino moms are scary. She had the chancla.
Actually, now that I think about it, my mom used to chase us around with a shoe.
Yeah, you got the chancla too.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
but we were more afraid of my dad.
Were you? Okay.
If she said, that's it.
I'm gonna call your dad.
Wait till your father gets home.
Uh-oh.
It was like, that it was a sentence. It was like, oh no.
Uh-oh. Scary.
Right?
That was scary. Huh?
Yeah. Dad for many years it was like, and the way he would do it, it was like, okay, that's it. You cross the line, you're in trouble, right? You're gonna get a spanking, right? And it was with a belt, right? So you're gonna get 3, right?
Okay.
So go to your room till I get there. For hours sometimes.
Oh, that's the worst.
In the room.
Oh.
First, there's psychological torture.
Psychological torture. That's the word I was searching for.
Yeah, psychological torture. And the other psychological torture was the few times we ever tried to run, my dad would be like, right now it's 3.
Oh, right now.
If you run, it's 6.
Yikes.
And it's
so he did physically get you.
Yeah. But it wasn't like, no. I guess you could. I guess the way we were raised, it was like a spanking was considered to be punishment, right? Like they weren't.
But your dad used a belt.
Oh yeah, my dad used a belt.
Yeah.
He'd light us up like a Christmas tree.
Like on bare skin?
No, underwear.
Okay, but still, that's...
Yep, you couldn't put padding.
No padding.
There was no
no
padding,
jeans.
right? You could just barely keep your dignity with your underwear on. But no, there was no jeans.
No. Okay, so that's corporal punishment. That's
okay.
I understand.
No,
I've talked to people who like get bloodied, so I understand that he wasn't doing that. Okay.
No, that was. It was, and not only that, it was always like, you cross the line, you know what happens. This is the consequences.
Right.
Right. And it was 3, and then it was done.
Okay.
Like you knew it was coming, but you'd have to wait a couple hours, right, in the torture chamber, waiting for him to show. It was my dad. My dad was a mind fuck, right? Like there's no question about it. Dad was a mind fuck.
Yeah.
And he was psychological
warfare.
That was worse than the spanking.
Yeah, for sure.
Because Mom used to hit us, and I don't even remember that shit. You know what I mean?
She didn't do it right.
But Dad was like this whole. It was just a process.
Yeah.
Right. And so she says Dad's coming home, and you're like, oh, let me think this.
Yeah, I done fucked up.
I don't know if I want to dance with the devil.
Right.
You know. So yeah, I used to sneak out of the house, and then that's when really I started to kind of develop my personality.
Okay.
Right. Like a lot of who I am today is a lot of who I was when I was drinking, and then I did. All of a sudden, my senior year was awesome. I had tons of friends in high school, right? The alcohol was the solution. College was the absolute best time of my life, bar none. I didn't graduate with a degree. Spent 5 years in college. Changed majors 5 times.
That's awesome.
I was not interested in graduating. I was interested in house parties, frat parties, and picking up girls, right? And girlfriends. And it was just, life was a party.
Right.
Fake ID at 19 years old. I was
Where'd
in the
you go
bars.
to school?
I went Cal Poly, San Luis Obispo.
Oh, you went to SLO. You're right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And so it was just the best time ever. And I worked at a restaurant, work night job. Everybody partied.
Wow.
Everybody partied. So it was just, I lived in this party culture, and it was literally the best time of my life.
Was it just booze at that time, or were there other drugs?
I was smoking weed. When I turned 19, I started smoking weed. Never in my wildest imaginations. Weed was never my, it was my drug of choice. Sure. It was my drug of choice. I loved it.
Me too.
Loved weed.
Yeah.
But I liked being jacked, right? I liked being jacked, and the weed would just make me too mellow.
Okay.
So, I mean, I would go to parties, and there was no karaoke machine, yet I was singing, right?
You were the karaoke machine.
I was the karaoke machine. I'd start taking off my clothes, you know what I mean? I would ass out, embarrass all my friends, start picking fights. It was just asinine. My friends are like, dude, when you first get to a party and you start drinking, you're awesome. You're actually the absolute life of the party. Like, if you're not there, it's just not the same. But there comes a certain point where you just transform into the biggest asshole on the planet. Like, why can't you just slow down? And I'm like, man, I don't know. Right? So then I got introduced to marijuana, and that was just the best. I loved it. But then it was like, you got sitting on the couch, smoking weed, and not doing anything. Right? I'm just like,
bump on a
I'm hungry. Right? So it's like, they're like, wait, it's like, you're no fun. What do we do? Right? To make this thing work. And it just never did.
Right.
So couldn't get the chemistry right. I was either this belligerent drunk, or I was just this speed bump.
Right.
And so like I said, college was a blast. I left there. I left college and went to LA to get a job, because I go, if I get stuck in this little town, I'm going to be a waiter the rest of my life.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And I got to get out of this town. So I left SLO, went down to LA, started selling cars down there. And then my transition kind of ended up landing me in the mortgage business. Right? Because I had a gift for gab. People like me.
Sure. Mortgage business was booming back in the day.
Yeah. So I got involved probably around 96, 97. right as it was starting to like pick up speed. I met some great people in the mortgage business, and I took it very, very seriously. I took it very, very seriously. Ended up getting a DUI at some point, my first DUI, out one night. I just slept in my car. I slept in my car, and then I woke up when I thought I was ready to start driving. It was 4:00 in the morning.
Okay.
There was a cop parked behind me.
What? He saw you in the car and he was waiting for you to leave?
Yep. As soon as I started the car, I pulled up to the stop sign and the lights went on. And I went, dude, I'm going to jail.
Man.
I was with a buddy of mine. We ended up in jail.
Both of you went to jail?
Yeah.
Why
we
did
were
they
both
arrest
drunk.
him? He wasn't driving.
I don't know. I have no idea. I think he was just being belligerent.
Oh,
But we both ended up in jail.
okay.
Anyway, we all both ended up in jail. And I just remember thinking to myself, this is the worst experience of my life.
Yeah.
And I'm never going to do that again. So I managed to, I had to go to AA.
I'm sorry. How old were you when you got your first DUI?
5.
25? You weren't married?
25.
Okay.
No. I was single, partying like a rock star, right? Just started in the mortgage business. Actually, I don't think I had gotten into the mortgage business quite yet. I was still working in a restaurant. I'd quit the too much backstory. Okay. Bottom line was I got a DUI. I got my license suspended for 6 months.
Okay.
I had to go to AA. I had to go to DUI school. I had to pay a bunch of consequences. And the good thing about me is that I learned quick. And I was like, well, that's not going to happen again.
Okay.
Right? So I never drove drunk again when I was in the States.
Oh.
And then, so that was my first consequence. I had to pay fines, that whole thing. And then I moved to Costa Rica. And that's when all the craziness just erupted.
Okay.
Right? That's where within a week of me moving to Costa Rica, I met the woman I was going to marry. And then
there's the problem.
Yeah, well, that was not the problem.
I'm just kidding.
I met the woman I was going to marry. She was 9 years younger than me, beautiful Costa Rican girl. And so I moved to Costa Rica to open up an online casino and sports book. And the first day I'm there, I meet the woman I'm going to later marry. And I also meet the next love of my life, cocaine, within that first week.
First week.
Yeah. I was 20. Wow. I was 29 years old the first time I did cocaine.
Really?
Because I thought that, no way I can get addicted to this. I'm too old.
Really?
Not knowing anything about addiction, obviously.
Yeah.
And I remember doing my first line of cocaine, and I was hooked from go. Really? I had never felt anything so amazing in my life. Forget the alcohol. Forget the weed. I am alive. Yeah. I quickly moved into God status. And I mean, it was just, I thought I was invincible. 10 feet tall, bulletproof, Brad Pitt. I was like, I was witty, handsome, right? Like cocaine just like, it transformed me.
I totally, I get it.
God, I can't believe I didn't find out about this in college. I would have finished college. I would have gotten a degree in economics. I would have been a politician and just become the most, or gone into law enforcement. And either way, would have been the most corrupt in either one. Right? Like, I was living in this very diluted state of self-importance.
It was like illusion of grandeur.
Yes. And I just gotten to this point in my life where I just realized that something was missing in my life and cocaine was it.
Yeah.
And that if I just had cocaine from the beginning, right, I would have discovered what everybody else secretly was doing and was the secret to their success. That was the voice in my head.
Right.
I had just made this equation that this was it. And I did. I mean, in that first year of doing cocaine, I built a business. I launched my first online casino and sports book, right? It didn't do so well. We probably lost it in the first year. I opened up a second one, and that one started to just crush it. I'd learned, I made all my mistakes. One, and then the second one, I walked away from all the people that were the problem in the first one, and then I had already made all these contacts with people that were like, dude, we're gonna fund you for your second casino.
Wow.
And so I was the man, right? And in the meantime, now I'm a year together with my girlfriend, right? But like now, it's becoming a problem, right?
How
it went to where I could.
How is it showing up as a problem?
I was living a double life because my girlfriend and I weren't living together. She was still living with her parents, and I had my own apartment. So, and she had to be home at midnight. So I would drop her off and then be out at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning with the boys.
Wow.
Yeah.
So she was a good girl.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Still and forever, always will always be, right?
Yeah.
She wanted to get married. She wanted to have kids. Very Latina background, very old school. She knew what she wanted, right? And I wanted her, but I also wanted my lifestyle, right? So I was able to play both sides because even if I was up till 5 o'clock in the morning, I'd just be doing blow throughout the workday.
Right.
So I could camouflage it, right?
Wow.
Because
she never knew.
Oh, she knew.
Oh,
she knew stuff was up. She knew. I got busted a few times, and then she's like, I can't put up with this shit. If you're going to be doing cocaine, we're done. I can deal with the alcohol and the weed, but I cannot deal with cocaine. That's another level. And I'm like, okay, I quit. Right. Right? So now I just got to get better at hiding it.
Right.
Okay. So there was just this Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde chemistry thing going on where I'm just trying to figure things out. And then, so it was like the first year was me, being able to do it for the most part.
Yeah.
Then the second year happened, and the casino I launched just started kicking ass, crushing it. Right? The money started pouring in. We built a marketing team and a company down there, and people were just like I was the man. So on top of the fact that we were crushing it, my cocaine addiction is going through the roof. And I'm like associating all my success to the cocaine. So there's just no way you're taking this away from me. And so, but my attitude and my demeanor just start to change. I just become just a really mean guy.
Really?
Very, very nasty. And so my partners, they'd be like, hey, dude. And everybody's partying. All my partners are partying, right? And they're like, dude, we're thinking you might have a problem with cocaine. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You guys are doing it right along with me. Yeah, but we are just, dude, you are just turning into a real asshole. Right? And I'm like, oh, I built this business, right? You guys are just jealous, right? You guys, you know what? This is bullshit. This is you guys. What are you guys trying to get in here and take credit for some shit? And they're like, oh, never mind. So they were just like, they just watched me just evolve into this monster. And it was almost better to just leave me alone than confront me.
Right.
The business was doing so well. We were making so much money that they were like, well, at least he's doing what he's supposed to be doing, right?
Right. So
the God complex just begins morphs and morphs. And having more and more problems with my girlfriend, now my fiance, right? I'm turning into somebody that's almost unrecognizable to the person she met. Wow. She's thinking that maybe if we get married, I'll change, right?
Settle
I just get
you
worse.
down.
She's thinking that maybe if we have a baby, I'll change. She gets pregnant, I get worse. And at some point, the business goes under. There was a shift in how Google ran its algorithms.
Oh, yeah.
And there was a shift in the processing for gambling. So if you were running a credit card on an online casino, it would get flagged and it would get blocked.
Oh,
so you couldn't deposit. So we weren't able to take deposits anymore. We weren't able to market. We were dead in the water. Dead in the water. Man. And now was the opportunity for my partners to come in and dethrone me. Right? And that's when I hit my rock bottom. I lost the business. I lost my wife. I was 50 pounds overweight. I was very, very ill. You know, yeah, I know.
I know you see the shock on my face.
I see the look. You're like 50 pounds
overweight.
Overweight?
Did you say over?
Yeah.
How is that possible?
Yeah. I was one of the few guys that
gained weight.
Yeah.
There's a sign right there. You shouldn't be doing it.
That I wasn't using, I would eat.
Oh, that's so crazy.
So she'd make me a huge breakfast in the morning. So I'd wake and bake every morning. You know, big bong,
yeah.
big, just hitting it until I was just high as a kite, right? And I could get the food down.
Oh my
right?
God.
And get the food down.
Yeah.
And then immediately I leave the house and go up the street a little bit and just do some key bumps, right? and then get to the office.
Oh my God! What? That's total
it's like
insanity.
I've got a
total insanity.
Yeah.
We laugh. The things that we laugh at.
Oh yeah, and I'm all gacked. So I'd hide in my office, right, all day, right, and so I'd have grinding
the teeth.
I'm chewing my shoulder off, and so I would have all the supervisors come in. I would have just a very small select group that could come into my office. And they would be like, hey, so we've got this issue, that issue. How do we handle this? How do we handle that? Right? And then I'd be like, okay, so we do this and we do that and do this. Hey, so-and-so wants to talk to you. I'm not here. Right? I'm not here. Right? So-and-so has a problem with
this. A little paranoid,
deal
maybe?
Deal with it. No, I just was like, paranoid. And then I
just anxious, huh? Yeah.
I was sweating, right? You know, beads of sweat, right? I got the air conditioner going full blast in my office, and I'm sweating. You know what I mean?
You're fat, you're sweating, you're gacked out,
just
you're
disgusting.
A total asshole.
And they come in to my office, and I'm going to be able to stare and go, oh, so tell me what's going on, right? No, I'm right? I got this whole thing. So they'd come in, and my select group of guys, and then finally...
I have to start doing this on video pretty soon. You are hilarious. I wish people could see this. Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
Oh, it was just one of those things where finally the intervention ensued. My partners were able to get me into rehab. Yeah, partners
Oh, wow.
They were able to because I kept showing up at the office, and so and the business was already in the toilet. So they locked all the doors and, instructed the security. And when I came, they pulled me into a separate office and they said, oh, it's over, dude. It's done. The business is in trouble. Obviously, there's, you've got no plans for turning it around. Mm-hmm. Right? We don't even know if it's salvageable based on just how hard we've been hit.
The market changes and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, we can't take credit cards. And
that's the whole point,
and that's
right?
Our whole business is taking credit cards.
Yeah.
And we don't have any marketing. And so now, and we've got you running around like some kind of, Tony Montana. So you're done and we're putting you into rehab.
Yeah.
And so they got me into rehab, and the shit just started just spiraling down from there. I ended up in rehab. I ended up losing my wife. There's a whole lot more, we can't go into all of it. Bottom line is, I had just gotten to a point where I realized I was done, right? And they were
just
about to stick me.
You had enough pain. You had enough consequences. You lost your wife and everything, and your child.
And I knew it was over. And so when I walked in and they told me it was over, I was actually relieved.
Oh.
I was actually just relieved. I go, you know what? You do whatever.
Right.
Whatever. Let's just go.
You were surrendered.
I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Yeah.
And so, a couple things happened from there. I found my way to meetings, right? I found my way to meetings, right?
12-step meetings.
But I started going to NA meetings. But right before I went to NA, the intervention happened. They said I was going to go into rehab. They were going to do some research on what rehab they were going to stick me in, right? And in the meantime, right, I was just supposed to stay home until they figured out what my next move was. And I went out one night just going, well, this is going to be my last night or one of my last nights. And I just did so much blow, I thought I was going to die.
Oh, my God.
And I'm home and I'm guzzling a bottle of whiskey to try and get my heart to stop racing. I'm popping Tylenol PMs and Valiums. I'm smoking a bunch of weed. And at some point I'm like, dude, I've just taken a tremendous amount of drugs. Like I might be inducing a speedball with all the volumes and the PMs and the weed and
oh my
right
God,
and
so
alcohol
scary.
mixed with. I was like, and I just remember going, "Is this my life?" My wife is 6 months pregnant. I've just lost my business. Is this it?
Wow.
And I got on my knees and I said, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready, God. I'm ready to go to the next life. I've made peace.
Oh.
I'm a disaster. I'm a disaster. I'm a train wreck. I'm ruining my wife's life. I ruined the business. All my friends have just disappeared. I've really got nothing to live for. Mm-hmm. And I'm only bringing pain to people around me. So either help me get clean or take me out of this world. And I just figured at this point, it was just a lot easier to overdose. Oh. And, I went to bed hoping I wouldn't wake up, and I woke up the next morning and the first thought in my head was like, I remember this therapist that I went to go see had suggested I go to a 12-step meeting. Mm-hmm. And that was my white light moment. I got up, I got dressed, I drove to this therapist's office. I said, I need help. He's like, oh, I'm so glad you're back. And I said, I need to go to those meetings. And he drew me a map to get to the meeting, and it was an hour away.
Mm-hmm. An hour away?
No, I'm sorry. It was starting in an hour.
Oh, okay. Oh, I was like, holy shit, that's so far.
I had an hour okay. To get there.
Got it.
But it still took me about 45 minutes to get to the meeting, right? Because it was on another side of town, right? Mm-hmm. And driving through Costa Rica is not that easy. Uh-huh. So anyway, I get to the meeting, and I was like, oh, thank God, right? And I started listening to the guy Shair, and I go, this is it. This is what I need. This is going to do it, right? And so I started going to meetings. This was in October 5th, 2002, when I started going to meetings. My clean date's May 26, 2003, so I had a relapse in there. Mm-hmm. But the thing that got me the most was I started going to meetings. I stopped using drugs. And my daughter was born. I was about 4 or 5 months clean at the time, separated from my wife at the time already. But there I was holding my daughter for the first time in the delivery room, and everything just kind of clicked, like I've lost everything. And here I am holding this little not even a day old baby. And my ex-wife is out cold because she just had a cesarean. So she was sleeping. Oh. And I'm by myself with my daughter, and I'm praying to God, and I'm just like, God help me. I can't believe I'm this little girl's father. Like, your dad is like a drug addict and a fiend, and I need help, God. I need help. I don't have any idea what to do here, but I've got no business being a father. Right. Everything was just in the toilet. And I just remember thinking to myself, this girl's going to be 15 years old one day, and someone's going to ask her, what does your dad do for a living? And she's going to say, my dad died of an overdose. My dad's in jail. My dad is on the streets, right? And I said, I can't. God help me. And I just remember just going, God help me. God help me. God, I'm crying all over my daughter, right? Man. I'm just crushed. I'm just like, I'm begging. I'm pleading with God to help me, right? And then I realized in that moment that as much as I had given up and wished and prayed for death months prior to that, 4 or 5 months prior to that, I now had like some fight. I now had some fight in me, right?
Yeah. Having that baby changes everything.
That fight, I'm holding her in my arms, and I'm like, that was it. I go, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna figure this out. I found out my ex-wife. She wasn't my ex-wife yet, but I found out she was seeing somebody.
While she was pregnant?
Yeah. It wasn't. She wasn't seeing somebody in that sense.
Oh,
But there was a guy in the picture that was there supporting her.
Okay.
Right. It hadn't turned into a romantic relationship yet.
Okay.
But when my daughter was born, right, he was there supporting her. We were separated.
Yeah.
So he'd come over and check on her, and he was, but I know they weren't sleeping together. You know what I mean? Like, it hadn't crossed that line yet, but I knew something was happening.
Yeah.
Something was up. And
you can feel that. Yeah.
yeah, I was stalking her, and so
stalking her.
So one night I parked up by where she was living, and I was like, I suspect something.
Yeah.
And so there was a car pulled up, and it stayed the whole night.
Oh.
And my daughter was about 30 days old at the time.
Oh, man.
And I fell apart.
Oh.
I fell apart. I just couldn't take it, and I just went on an epic run.
You did.
I did. I relapsed. I was 5 months clean.
Oh, brutal.
I relapsed. It was horrible. I called up one of my old buddies, and I said, "Hey, dude, come on over, man." He's like, "Oh, dude, I'm at home. I'm chilling." I'm like, "Dude, I've got the good stuff." He's like, "Are you using O?" I said, "Yeah, dude, come on over." He's like, "I'll be right there." He comes to the house. He's like, "All right, dude, what's up? What you got?" And I'm like, "It's in the kitchen. Help yourself. Let's get it rolling, blah, blah, blah." He's in there for a long time. And I'm like, dude, this guy's taking forever. I go in the kitchen. He's pouring everything down the sink.
No.
He's pouring all the booze, the Coke, everything. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing? He's like, you motherfucker. He goes, I'm so insulted. I'm like, what? He goes, dude, I've been around for you and you're rock bottom, right? You've got no business getting high.
He was insulted.
For you to call me, what does that say about what you think about me?
Holy shit.
And I was like, dude, I'm your number one supporter in this, getting sober, but I will not stand by and do this. Get your shit. You're coming to my house.
Whoa.
Drag me to his house. Drags me to his house.
That's a good friend.
Great friend.
Oh,
Great friend.
Are you guys still friends?
Yeah. Just the other day, I was like, on my anniversary, I always send him a thank you.
Do you? I got the chills right now. That's amazing.
Yeah. I send him a thank you every almost every anniversary, and I'm going to celebrate 15 years this month.
This month? Oh my God!
26th.
The 26th, May 26th.
Yeah, May 26th.
Oh, I'm gonna try to release your episode on your birthday. That'd be awesome.
That would be awesome.
I'm doing it.
All right. There you go. So anyway, it was like, so there he was. He drags me to his house. He has me call my sponsor, call my wife. I had to and I just remember going, dude. And I was so pissed, but then I get over there and I was like, wow. I go, you know what, dude? Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I went to the meeting the next day, and right after I went to the meeting, I went straight home, and I had a baggie hidden because that's how we roll.
Because that's how we are. Something just in case of emergency.
I had alcohol stashed. I had, well, not only did I stash it because, I need a stash, but, I had him coming over. I didn't want to do all of it with him. You know what I mean? So, I'll share it to a point.
I know. Let's not be ridiculous.
I gotta have the backup.
Yeah. Don't be stupid.
So I had plenty of alcohol, plenty of blow, and I just started going at it.
Wow.
I disappear for another 3 days. And then my wife at the time is like, where the hell is O? 9 o'clock in the morning, she rings my doorbell. I've been up for days. I got the high beams on, I'm like, who would ring my doorbell at 9 o'clock in the morning? I go upstairs, I peek out the window.
The peeking through the blinds.
peeking through the blinds, and I could see right to the front, and I can see at the front gate, there's my ex-wife with my daughter, 30 days old. And I'm like, oh, dude.
Worst.
And I just got on my knees, and I just started crying. I just started crying. And I was like, oh God. I go, I get it. I fucking get it. I just started cussing and screaming. I'm like, ugh. And I get to the intercom, and I'm like, hey, what are you doing here?
Hey,
she's
what's
like,
up?
What's up? She's like, what am I doing? Are you going to let me in? I'm like, I'm kind of busy. Oh, busy. House was trashed. I had drugs, alcohol everywhere. It looked like a bunker. No way I was letting her in. Oh, you're busy, huh? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, guess I'll talk to you later. Click. And I go over and I peek out the window just to see down. And she only lived a couple blocks from me, so she walked. And I just watched her walk up the street with my daughter, holding my daughter. And I was like, that's it. I said, I'm done.
Was that the last time?
No. I was...
No.
It took me 2 months of beating myself up for that moment.
Okay.
It took me 2 months of beating myself up and going back and forth. And she was born in February. March was when the relapse happened. March, April, May. So 2 months.
Right.
Relapse cycle, in and out of the rooms, back and forth, that kind of a thing. And then on May 26th, I got a brand new sponsor. And that's when I was done. That's when I hold on. That's when I surrendered, and I said, I'm willing to go to any lengths, man. I am done. I don't care what you tell me to do, I will do it. And whatever that man told me to do, I did. That was a time in my life where my daughter was the most important thing in my life, because I spent in that 2-month relapse cycle, all I could think about was my daughter and the rooms and my sponsor and the meetings and my daughter and the rooms and the meetings, and I'm getting high and I'm lying and I'm manipulating, and I was like, I don't even know what I'm doing. I don't even know what I'm doing. And then I came to the realization that alcohol and drugs was always going to be an option. But what became very, very clear was that it was no longer a solution.
Okay.
When I had that epiphany, even in a drug-induced psychosis, right, I just said, that's it. No matter what I do, this is not the answer. And so I walked away from the drugs and the alcohol, cold turkey, picked up a white chip, started working with my sponsor, and I haven't picked up a drink or a drug since.
Wow, that's amazing. And so you get this new sponsor, and you do everything he tells you to do. What did you do like that first 60, 90 days?
I had to, I had to, yeah. I had to every morning get up, pray, and ask God to help me stay clean one more day. Every night I had to come home, thank God for another day clean. Step work every Monday. I was to meet with my sponsor every Monday.
Every Monday, okay.
I couldn't speak for the first 30 days at the meeting because nothing that could come out of my mouth is worth listening to. So you will take the cotton out of your ears. You will stick it in your mouth. You will not share for 30 days.
Wow.
You will listen.
Okay.
You will listen. Job is to listen.
Okay.
And so you're going to work the steps. You're going to meet every day. These are non-negotiables, right? If you do not do these things, you will find another sponsor.
Okay.
So you will have step work done. You will go to 90 meetings in 90 days.
90, okay.
So 90 and 90, working steps, no
Service?
sharing at the meetings. No service yet.
No service
Nothing.
yet. Okay.
You just go to the meetings every day. Sit there and sit on your hands. Right? Then after 90 days, right? Then it was like, okay, great. I'm like, I did 90 and 90. Now what? Another 90 and 90.
Okay.
And I'm like, dude, this is starting to go. Just you're going to do what I'm going to tell you to do. And that's it. Right? And I had been given the gift of desperation, and I wasn't able to hear niceties. I wasn't able to hear, oh, we're here for you. We'll teach you to love yourself. We'll love you until you love yourself. You know, it's going to be okay. Keep coming back. It was do what the fuck I tell you to do or find another sponsor.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And that was my dad. And I responded to that language because that's the language that I listened to growing up. And so the tough love.
You respected your dad.
I respected my dad, and I respected his recovery. Right? The man knew the basic text inside and out. So we would meet, and I mean, he would break my step work down. Right? And it was like, I was like, this dude is amazing. Amazing. Aww. And so I did what I was told. And then right around 6 months, man, I realized that I had been given the gift that I had been working for years at this point now, which was the obsession to use had been lifted.
Really? After 6 months?
6 months.
Okay. So during that 6 months, you really struggled with...
That was my moment. Oh, yeah. I was desperate to get my wife back. All I kept thinking about was what she was doing with this guy, and I got to go to meetings and work steps, and my sponsor had me on I could not talk to her. I could not spend time with her. I could not, no texts, no emails, no phone calls. I had to pick up my daughter. I had a window of time to get in and out. I had to talk to her and tell her that we couldn't have a conversation because it was detrimental to my sobriety. And so now that I think about it, I go, I had to be in complete desperation. Right. Because it was like, I was a strict diet of recovery, step work, going home, and that's it, and so I couldn't talk to her. I didn't know what was going on in her life, right? So it was just this mind fuck, constantly wondering what was going on, but it saved my ass because I couldn't grill her. I couldn't try and manipulate her. I couldn't try and make her feel guilty. I couldn't find out information that I didn't want to hear anyway. Right. And so right around 6 months, I remember I was like, oh my God, it's gone.
Wow, that's amazing.
He's like, okay, now you're going to start chairing meetings. Now you're going to start doing service. Now you're going to start now we're going to go next level. Now we're going to go next level, right? Okay. And you're not going to sponsor anybody till you have a year. Okay. You ain't nobody. You're not sponsoring anybody.
Nobody wants what you have.
Nobody wants what you got. Yeah. Nobody wants what you got.
All right.
Hey, I don't want what you got. So you're gonna do what I tell you to do. You're gonna work the steps. I was jonesing to sponsor guys.
Were you really?
Yeah, and I got to the 4th step.
Omar, you've always been a helper, haven't you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you're a helper.
Yeah. Once I got it, I wanted to give it back. But the problem with that is this. The ego, we have no idea how powerful the ego is. And it's so deceptive.
Your ego is not your amigo.
My ego is not my amigo. And the better you get in recovery, the better you get the better you get physically, mentally, emotionally in recovery, the more you start to think you know some shit. And so now all of a sudden it's like, I'm sponsoring guys. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'm chairing meetings, right? And he was like, we're having none of that. He had me write a 2-page essay on grandiosity.
Really? That's a good sponsor.
He was a beast. He was a beast. I learned so much, and I realized, I was like, holy cow, there I was. I thought I was somebody. Right?
He's like, no.
I thought I was, dude, you are a garden variety drug addict in Narcotics Anonymous. Do not get full of yourself. This is not the place.
Simmer down, drug addict.
Yeah, humility. You have none.
Okay.
I'll let you know, right?
Yeah.
When you can sponsor. And so when I finished, I was starting my 4-step, and this is Narcotics Anonymous. So it was basic text.
So you started out in NA. You didn't go to AA?
And hardcore.
Okay.
Basic text. I did. It took me 4 years to finish the steps in Narcotics Anonymous.
Really? Is it so? And have you done them in both programs? 12.
Yes.
Okay. And so how does? I actually am not that familiar with NA. How is the narcotics 12 steps different from alcoholic 12 steps?
Well, the way I worked, here's my only knowledge of both.
Okay.
I worked the big book. I did the big book, and we would do like weekend workshops I did with my sponsors, where we would go through the big book in like 3 to 4 days.
The whole maybe like, the whole book, or just like the
whole book?
Oh, really? Stories and all?
We wouldn't do the stories. No, not the stories.
First 164.
164 pages, something like that?
Yeah.
I think so. Anyway, so it's working the steps through the big book.
Okay.
You know, you read Dr. Bob's story, you know, the doctor's opinion, you know, a letter to the wife, la, 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 la. So, and there's a strategy for that, but you can do it all in a weekend.
Okay. Wow.
And you do your fourth step that weekend, and we did like, and so I worked it through that. And NA is the step working guide, which is a beast.
Okay.
68 questions in the first step alone, 86 question in the fourth step, plus in the fourth step is the inventory section. So there's a whole detour, and just question number 12 is all about your resentments. Okay. Right? And so it took me 6 months to do my fourth step.
Wow, 6 months.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, no, trust me. Like for me, I didn't realize how fortunate I was, because the first step took me 4 months. First step took me like 4 months, maybe longer.
That's intense.
Right? 68 questions. We would meet every week, and then he would go, "This is bullshit. You're in denial."
Scandalous.
And then he'd go back, you know, and then we'd come back and he'd go, "Okay, before you can move on to the next." And I learned that basic text.
That's
backwards.
Intense. That's really intense.
Right. Yeah. And when I used to, guys that I sponsored, I took them through the 12 steps. They're still clean today.
Okay.
The guys I took to, I busted their balls the same way my sponsor, red pen and all.
Red pen and all.
I would take them through the whole 12 steps. It would take us years.
Wow. Okay.
It would take us years, and it was like, I only know one way to do it. It changed my life.
Right.
I became an entirely different person when I finished the 12 steps of Narcotics Anonymous, and I don't think I would have gotten that in AA over a weekend.
No, right? I mean, I've never heard of anybody doing AA, the 12 steps in a weekend.
That's how they used to do it old school back in the day, because they needed sponsorship.
I got sober before you did. That's not how I was brought up.
But I thought when Bill and Bob first launched.
Oh, you're saying when? Oh, yeah. That I don't know. I mean, I've never heard.
They used to pull them out of the bars.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. And they would just fill them full of coffee.
Yeah.
Run through the book. And get these guys sponsoring within a few months.
Right. Yeah. Isn't it? So here, this is the kind of the interesting thing about how recovery evolves, right? Like it's still evolving. And one of the things that we talked about before we, hit record was that how it has evolved today, right? So you and I, it feels like, I don't know, the recovery podcasts, Facebook groups, being able to connect with people over Skype or Zoom has really changed the face of recovery and the way people are doing it. So, You're doing life coaching and all that, but how do you see, and there's many different programs now, there's Celebrate Recovery, Refuge Recovery, there's Recovery 2.0. How do you see, what is the difference between like in-person recovery and like online recovery?
Well, in-person recovery is still very much structured. Mm-hmm. And so it still has a lot of the dogma attached to it that it's always had, right? Where there is this sort of one way of doing it. There's one way of doing it in AA. There's one way of doing it in NA, and it's the only way. And it's kind of evolved, like what we're saying. Like if we talk about what Bill and Bob were doing, you know what I mean? Especially Bill Wilson, just grabbing guys out of the bars, getting them to start reading the books, and immediately start getting them into service, because there just was not
Wasn't enough.
There wasn't the support that was necessary, right? And it was just morphing, and so there was that need, and it wasn't about if you're not doing it this way, if you're not doing it that way, it's like just start, right?
Yeah.
Like, but we need help.
Yeah.
And so as it starts to grow, personalities start to infiltrate, right? And then it's like, well, Bill did it this way and Bob did it that way, and the founders did it this way, and that kind of a thing. And all of a sudden it becomes this very rigid, inflexible sort of way of doing recovery, and it's not evolving, just like everything else. Right. Hondas in 1979 look very different than the Hondas of today.
Everything evolves, including cars.
Everything evolves. Okay, clothing evolves, hairstyle evolves, everything evolves, and if we don't evolve with it, then people just drop off because it's just it no longer is congruent with values the values that we have today. Right. The values of today are different than the values that were in the 40s. So then the way I see it happening is that you still have a very structured, rigid, in-person AANA fellowship that who knows if it will or will not change, right? I don't know, and I don't. That's not part of my journey. My journey is I got clean and sober in narcotics. I still go to meetings. I love the people in it. I love the fellowship.
Yeah.
And I take what I need and I leave the rest.
Right.
When I launched Shair 3 years ago, it was because of that purpose. Because I was going to both fellowships. I was going to NA and AA. And I left the NA I hadn't left the NA fellowship, but I had an NA sponsor, and then I got an AA sponsor, and my friends in NA were like, "Oh, dude, so you've gone to the other side." And I'm like,
it's so weird.
Gone to the other side?
What is this? What are you talking about?
Star Wars? Am I Darth Vader now? Like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's
No,
like, no,
I
dude.
understand.
This is my home. Yeah, but dude, hey, that's
Really?
That's not real recovery. So
Yeah.
as soon as that came into the picture, and as soon as I started to feel that, I am not that guy.
Yeah.
I am not that guy. So I was like, fuck you guys. I guess I'm AA. Peace out.
Yeah.
Not a problem.
Yeah.
You know,
So are you just doing AA now, or?
No, I do both.
You still do both?
I don't care. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like I do what I want.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
And that's how I see online recovery.
Right.
Online recovery is I do what I want.
Right.
I don't have to go to a meeting. I don't have to take a service position. I don't have to work the steps. I don't have to do anything. I get the benefits of being in a community, connecting with like-minded individuals, and listening to other people share their experience, strength, and hope without the stigma, without the judgment, without the self-righteousness, without the dogma, without the structure. I get to just participate with it, and nobody's judging me.
Right.
And so when I built Shair, at first, it was like, okay, cool, everybody's having a good time. After we broke 1,000, and it really started to get bustling in there, right? And I started to get more notoriety in my podcast. You had these people joining in there that were these big book thumpers, right? And they would start telling people in there, yeah, relapsed again? Wow. Well, let's hope you do it differently this time. Did you talk to your sponsor? What step are you on? And I was like, delete. I started kicking people out. At first, and it was like I was over a decade of recovery.
Right.
So I wasn't about to get into a shouting match with anybody and ruin my own credibility. Right? And I never warned anybody. I never did anything. It was just gone. Gone. And then all of a sudden it would be like these threads would get out of control, nasty.
People are so passionate. Yeah.
I'd kill the thread, and then I would find people that were going bananas. I would kick them out. And then as we got bigger and bigger, I had to put in some rules.
Yeah.
Right? And so the rules were, this is a group that focuses on talking about recovery in any fashion, form, whatever pathway has worked for you, it is welcome here. If you got clean and sober doing yoga, if you got clean and sober cleaning houses, if you got clean and sober at the gym, it doesn't matter. If you are struggling with addiction, you need a tribe. You need help. You need support. That's what this is. If you're coming in here to pass judgment, to be self-righteous, to be toxic and negative, you will be removed instantly. And so as soon as that tone was set, it just completely, and I even asked, we have like 8 moderators in there, admins, have 8 admins, because it just got to where I couldn't manage.
That's a big rope.
Because people would come and it was like, we put my name. Hey, Omar, what about this? Omar, when I was like, dude, I'm not, you know what I mean? Like, I put this group together. You guys, we need to work together on this, right?
Okay.
And so things were changing and evolving. And I started encouraging people. I got the admins in there. And then what's happened is the admins were doing a lot of work at first because then they would lean on the admins. But then what happened was once all the negative bullshit and toxicity was removed from the group, there's actually almost no need for admins. We haven't had an issue in so long that I can't even, the last time we had where they said, hey, did you look at this post? This used to be every week. It's like, dude, check out this post. Oh my God, check out so-and-so.
Just
check
constant
out so-and-so.
drama.
And then when I gave those guys, I go, guys, you guys already know the deal. You already know what we will or will not tolerate in here. Just kick people out, man. Set that tone that we will. This is a no tolerance for negativity in any way, shape, or form. No sexual harassment. Nothing. It's all. And so now, because everyone's so supportive, somebody posts something, you'll get 30 responses, and most of it is just from people in the group.
Yeah. No, it's a very loving and supportive group. I mean, I've seen, people share about their relapse and they get nothing but love and support. It's amazing.
Exactly. When we used to have, I remember one lady came in and she said she relapsed. She said, well, I took one of my dog's Valiums or something like that. Right. But I'm not going to call it a relapse or something like that. And we're like, and today that's just like, honey, just keep coming back. Well, you claim your clean date whenever you claim it. It's none of my business. Okay. If you want to be drunk, if you want to take drugs every single day and say you've got 5 years clean, that's your business. You know what I mean? That is your, obviously they're not going to meetings.
Right. Yeah. So
right?
how do you reconcile the fact that you did well with somebody who was so straight with you and disciplinarian and you follow the rules or get the fuck on down the road? How do you reconcile just do whatever you want? You know what I mean? Do you know what I'm getting at? It's like, how do you reconcile?
Because there has to, because that's a sponsor-sponsee relationship. And if that man hadn't showed me the love that he showed me, he connected with me in a way that I cannot explain.
Okay.
Right? And trust me, he didn't come at me like that at first.
He built rapport with you first.
We built rapport. He gave me the rules.
Okay.
And then if he saw me straying, right, he would drop the massive hammer on me, right?
Severe guidelines.
But we had developed, here's the thing. You got people going into meetings that are walking up to newcomers that do not know who they are, and they share something and they come up and they judge them. Yeah. And they say, well, you know what, honey, if if I would do if I were you, you should do this. And when I was this, and my sponsor told me this, and it's like, you have no business whatsoever. Right? So this group is not an AA, NA, 12-step, anything. This is not an anything. This is a group where we talk about recovery. And so and here's the thing, what happens is people get honest now They get support. They get love. No one judges them. No one tells them what to do. They're like, we're here for you. Whatever you need, right? Have you tried this? Have you tried that?
Okay. So that's the difference. It's like a welcoming, like, have you tried this? Like, here's some solutions. Have you tried? Okay, that's a very different approach. Then.
Relapse after relapse. How long you been in the Shair group?
Maybe I think I started joining recovery groups when I launched the podcast about a year ago.
Listen, we've had, I cannot count, could not tell you how many relapses we've had in the group that are now the people that are supporting the relapsers of today.
Yeah, they're giving it away.
Because there is no judgment. None. There is no self-righteousness. There is no judgment. There is no formal way of doing anything. We are only here. Our sole purpose is to be a bridge. Our sole purpose is to create a bridge to a pathway.
Create a bridge.
We create a bridge to a pathway by introducing pathways, and then we remind you to take what you need and leave the rest.
Omar, that's a beautiful thing. I love that.
Well, that's why people keep coming back.
Yeah.
Arlina, if we did not run it that way, then it would be run by egos. It would be run by people who feel they know something and feel like they can tell people what to do.
Right.
Instead of just being there, and if somebody says, how did you do it? Great. Now I can tell you how I did it. When people are struggling and asking for help and they get all this love, and all of a sudden, imagine so many of us have the self-esteem of a warm clam, right? It's so small. It's almost inconceivable, unrecognizable. You're just so beat down.
Right.
You've done so many atrocities, so much wreckage. You just feel as though there just is no hope. And you feel like I've just gone too far. I'm a piece of shit. I'm not worth it. I have no value. And tell me how many addicts in their first year, when they're cruising through that fourth step, it's all about trying to find out who they are and who they aren't.
Right, yeah. Who they really are, yeah.
And so they spend so much time focusing on who they really aren't. They've taken on an identity of being this deplorable, depraved, drug addict disaster. And, you're just looking for someone to validate that belief system. And then you come into the Shair group and you're just met with love and more love and then support and then some more support and then some more love and then some support. And you post in that you need help and you have 30 people that are like, we're here, we're behind you, keep coming back. Hey, how are you? They check in on you the next day. And all of a sudden there's that little while, it's like, wow, man, like these people actually care. They don't even know who I am. They've never seen me in person. And so maybe I can listen to something they tell me.
Right.
Maybe I'll listen to them because I'm not feeling like I'm being judged.
Right. Yeah.
And so now I ask for help. Somebody gives me a suggestion. And daily, I went to my first meeting. It wasn't as bad as I thought. Thank you guys. I would have never gone if it wasn't for the podcast. I would have never gone if it wasn't for this group. I would have never gone.
Never gone.
And when we talk about if I can just help one person, because that's what we all say.
Yeah.
That's what we all say because it sounds like a good thing to say, right?
Yeah.
If I can just help one person. I'm going to fucking do a podcast every single day, work on it.
I know.
I can help one person. I can go to a meeting and help one person. Right? I can just help one. That's a nice thing to say.
Yeah.
But the truth of it is that when you're doing a podcast like this and you come from the most authentic and altruistic mindset of where it ain't about me, right? And all of a sudden it's thousands of people that you're touching their lives, and you know of hundreds. You literally know of hundreds that you've helped. It's like, wow.
That's mind-blowing. It's hard to wrap your head around that.
I'm not changing a thing.
Right.
I'm not changing a thing.
Right.
We're not self-proclaimed gurus.
No.
We are shoving anything down anybody's throats. It's a soft sell all day long, surrounded with love and positivity on a daily basis.
Right.
And if I were to say that, and even my coaching clients, right? When they talk about stuff and they bring it up and they'll say stuff like, yeah, man, I went to the meeting and, I was there, and the lady was like, well, when was the last time you were at a meeting? I haven't seen you in a while, and it's like, did you relapse? And it's just like, I feel so dirty, and I feel like and it's like, well, tell you what, I go, in here, you get vulnerable and we help you. And that's it.
Yeah.
And we're going to coach you through this, right? And that's all we're here to do. We're here to love and support you. And the whole idea is, if we can bring this out into the world, imagine if you could walk into any place, whether it's a church, whether it's an AA meeting, whether it's a local chapter of something, and there is this structure, right? And you have an opportunity to come in and learn it, agree or disagree with some of it, but because you like the majority of the information, you stick around, right?
Right.
And you're able to wear wherever you're at like a loose garment, and it feels good, and it's something that I can get behind. Then imagine what happens to guilt and shame.
Right. It disappears.
It dissipates. It dissipates. If you can do it, if every place was like Burger King and you could get it your way, then all of a sudden, the dynamic changes, and it's like, why would I want to leave?
Exactly.
People don't leave Shair. Why would I leave?
Right.
It just feels too good, and and I can do whatever I want. I can say whatever I want. There is just one rule.
What's that?
No negativity.
No negativity.
There is no tolerance for negativity, judgment, self-righteousness, toxicity, and sexual misconduct. That's it.
Yeah,
that's it.
Just be decent. Don't be a dick.
But don't be a dick. But if you're struggling, man, and you just can't get it, right? Yeah. Then we will. This is actually the place where we will love you till you learn to love yourself.
Right. Yeah. No, that's awesome. I love what you're doing with the podcast. I love what you're doing with the group. And listen, you've been so generous with your time. And so I feel like I should turn you loose. I really appreciate all the work that you do. Usually my wrap-up question is around, the podcast is called ODAAT Chat. ODAAT stands for One Day at a Time. So I usually try to end with, do you have a regular routine that you do, like on a daily or weekly basis, to help you stay sober? Is that a big question?
No, but
it's like your whole life, right?
It's my whole life. It's like it's all day, every day. It's like
it's your work, it's your vocation, it's your hobby.
Okay, so here's where you can find me. You can find me on www.theshairpodcast.com. That's the website where you will find all the podcasts where I discuss recovery.
Okay.
Then you can join the Facebook private group. So just go in the search bar on Facebook and type in Shair Recovery Network and ask to join private group.
Okay.
Right. In there is where I'm discussing recovery again every day. right? I go to a 12-step meeting on Tuesdays. I go to a 12-step meeting on Saturdays. I still have 2 sponsees. They've both finished the steps. So it's more like they're just my bros, right? And so, but trust me, they still need work. So so that's what I get up in the mornings. I try and have a very rigorous routine for prayer and meditation. Okay. Right. And when I say I try, it's the most valuable first hour of my day. Right. And so I'm saying that now almost as a reminder to myself, because here's what happens when you pray and you meditate. It feels good. Right. At first it feels uncomfortable and weird. Then you get into a routine and then you're like, this feels so good. And then it feels so good that you take for granted how good it feels. Right. And then you just forget about it.
I know, I do the same thing.
There's no pain. And then you just start just doing your day. And the thing is, because I'm either coaching someone in a coaching circle, recording a podcast, editing a podcast, or doing social media in the Facebook group, I'm inundated with recovery. There's never a moment where I'm not doing service, right? So I can't even contemplate what it is to have an urge to use. You know what I mean? Like, I can't remember the last time I called somebody. It's like, oh, dude, I'm just terrified. I'm just riddled with fear, and I don't know what to do next. It's dude, let's get to a meeting. Oh, fuck, I haven't been to a meeting in weeks. I haven't talked to my sponsor. And it's like, because it's so good. Yeah. Right? Because my life is just inundated in recovery by design. This was a choice.
Yeah, I hear you.
It worked. I'm at today. Yeah. It's why I charge for coaching, right? I'm not charging you to be your sponsor, so we're never going to work steps on my calls, but we will work on your marriage and your business and your job and your exercise and your diet and your spiritual condition and your passion and your purpose. That's what we will work on with me, and you will pay me handsomely for it. But otherwise, the podcast, the Facebook group, what I do in the community, that is a service commitment that I've been doing for 15 years. Yeah. I have been giving back on a level that reaches thousands of people on a daily basis.
Okay, that's right on. That's so awesome. I love what you're doing. I am so excited that you came on the podcast. I was like, fuck yeah, I got Omar. Woohoo! So cool. Thank you so much for your time. Oh my God, I'm so excited to have you on.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I mean, seriously, I actually was like, I'm so busy. I'm so like I know
you are. Oh my God, I know you are. Yeah.
And it's like when you told me at the beginning, you're like, I have like 45 episodes already done. I've got like 60 that I've already done. I'm like, oh my God, here's an up and comer. I didn't even, and so I got to root for you, you know what I mean? Because this is, you know what I mean? I remember being where you're at, you know what I mean? Less than 100 episodes, right? And it's just this slow progression, I mean, like I've got now on iTunes over 200 reviews, all 5 stars. Over 200 reviews, 5-star.
Somewhere that you had like 1 million downloads or
over $1 million, like 1.2 now.
That is so crazy.
2 million downloads. I've got, it's just thousands of people that are downloading it every week. But again, it the first year, man, it's like, why am I doing this?
I know.
Right?
There are times I'm not gonna lie. There are times when I'm like killing myself over this thing.
If you stay true, right? Just keep on going.
Yeah.
There's a reason why we're doing this.
Yeah.
Right? And trust me, it can't be for the notoriety, because if it came too soon, the ego would just come to the surface like it always does.
Yeah.
Right? It's crippling at times where you're like, I am just producing this thing, and it's like, what the fuck? Right? But then you get to this point.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, and then you get to this point but the humility factor is already built in. Because you realize it's because you just kept moving. You just put the blinders on. You just kept moving because you know what? Like you say, if I'm just helping one person, great. But then what happens is it's more than just one person, and it starts to evolve into a different direction. And then you can actually live in your purpose and your passion.
Oh, that would be amazing.
But you gotta put in the work.
Yeah.
It's not. There's no overnight success. But you've got 26 years. 26 years, right?
24. Just had 24 years of sobriety. Yeah.
24 years of sobriety, massive. You know what I mean? That in and of itself, right? Tons of credibility. My only suggestion would be, get your Facebook group going.
Make it private. Yeah, it's not it's not. It's like a fan page. It's not a private group.
No. That'll never. It's not true. There is a strategy for the fan page. I just don't know it. Right? Tommy Rosen's got 43,000 people liking his fan page. That's just a fan page.
Well, he's like a yoga guy, right?
Well, that's probably why he's able to kind of capture such a large market, because a lot of it falls under the yoga and meditation.
So it's not, and we're doing something that's still, and listen, we're fighting the good fight of trying to destigmatize, recovery and alcoholism and addiction. We're fighting that front of the stigma of both. Like you said it earlier today, there is stigma in recovery as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So
anyway,
thank you so much for your encouragement. I really appreciate it. And no, I have you in my life, and Anna, David, and other people who have accomplished great things. And I just admire the way you've been able to help so many people and create a community, a supportive, loving community. That's really what it's all about. And at the end of the day, you're talking about, it's the love that heals, right? And
yes.
So
period.
I love that you're solely focused on that, and it's a beautiful thing.
Thank you. And again, all the best. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. If you were here, I'd give you a high five. Woo.
High five.
Thank you so much, Omar. You have a great night.
All right. Good night.
All right. Good night. One last thing before you go, if you enjoyed the podcast today, please don't forget to subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher and leave a review. And if you'd like to make a donation to the podcast and help me keep the lights on, you can do so by visiting ODAATchat.com. There's a donation button or membership button on the right-hand side. Have a great day. Thank you so much for joining us.